And I want to talk to you a little bit about that in the time that we have. I want to put a face on this issue if I can. And I want to start off by telling you the most powerful thing I do in the 30-plus years I've been doing this work is just tell my own story. Because people, all the facts and figures don't mean much to people, but when you can put a face on the issue, people are able to relate to the kid they might have elected class president in high school. I was on an airplane, just to frame this for you. I was when Ray and I lived in Atlanta, I was on an airplane one time having just finished 2 days of training. I was exhausted. And I sat next to a man who in a brief period of time told me that he was a fundamentalist Christian businessman. And he was heading back to Atlanta. You know how on an airplane sometimes you talk to people and they often begin the discussion by saying, are you going to work or are you heading home? So I said I was heading home, so was he. And I liked the man's music. He seemed like a nice guy, eye contact, smiling, you know. But his words were kind of scary to me. He was this fundamentalist Christian businessman who was going to be speaking in Florida to 2,500 fundamentalist Christians the following week about moral issues in the workplace. And his wife was a member of Concerned Women for America, which is this organization that has as one of its goals opposing gay civil rights. And he had received one of President Bush's 1,000 Point of Light Award, and he had been featured in Inc. and Fortune magazines as this big fundamentalist Christian business person. And he said, enough about me, how about you? He said, are you married, and what do you do for a living? Now, I want you to know that there was a time in my life in which I would not have responded honestly to him. I would have said something like, I'm single and a diversity trainer. It wasn't a lie. Legally, I was single, and legally, I'm a diversity trainer. I wouldn't initially have spoken to him because I was afraid of his disapproval. This is years ago when I first came out. I was so hungry for people's approval because I didn't approve myself. See, I had, we talked about homophobia. I had internalized homophobia. You've heard of internalized racism. Well, there's internalized homophobia, too. I hated my feelings. I didn't want to be gay, but I thought if I'm holy enough and smart enough and funny enough and good enough at everything I do, then people will accept me for who I am. That was my modus operandi in the beginning of my journey after coming out. So I wouldn't have talked to him initially because I was afraid of his disapproval. Then I got to a point in my life, and I know you know some gay people, and you know some black people, and you know some women, and you know some Latinos and Asians and others who are in this category, where the world was divided between us and them as far as I was concerned. If you looked like me and felt like me, you were an us, and everybody else was a them. You were the enemy. And it's a naive, restrictive political position to go through, but you have to go through it. It's called a pride stage. That's where, as a gay person, you buy all of Katie Lang and Melissa Etheridge's music, right? You go to gay resorts for vacation and gay restaurants, and you want to just be surrounded by gay people because you don't trust heterosexuals, right? You think as soon as you give them a chance, as soon as you give them an opening, they're going to talk about Genesis 19, Leviticus 18:22, and Romans 1:26, and that's going to be the menu of the afternoon, right? And I thought, so I'm not even going to give them a chance, right? But I found in that stage that I kept bumping up against remarkable heterosexual people who defied my stereotype of what the average heterosexual person was going to be. I was on an airplane one time, and a nun was sitting next to me, and the Vatican had recently issued some unflattering statements about gay people, so I pulled out a copy of my book on being gay and put it on the little table, in front of me, and thought, let's be a prop this whole trip. So she has, why should I be uncomfortable? Let her be uncomfortable. So, I know it's very immature, but that was the stage that I was at the time. I had to go through this phase. So I'm sitting there with the book, and I don't pick it up, I just leave it there. And so at the end of the trip, I put my book in my briefcase, and I get up to go, and she taps me on the shoulder and passes me a note that says, God bless you, I support what you're doing. Well, I felt this big, because I could have had this wonderful conversation with this heterosexual ally who I dismissed based on my heterophobia, right? Because it works both ways, right? So, and I had other remarkable experiences like that, so I thought when this fundamentalist Christian asked me this question, I was going to answer honestly. So I said, Ray and I have been...